Okay, so I've been asked to do a what if series on the Pendleton Wrestling Federation. Now, for those who don't know, it's a backyard, front yard wrestling group that I was part of and ran as a teenager in Pendleton, Oregon in the late 90s, very early 2000s. Uh, it was the brainchild of both myself and a friend named Brian. Um, anyway, I was asked, hindsight being 2020, would you have done things differently? Would you have envisioned things differently? And after taking some time to think about this, I always imagined the company being more than just a backyard, front yard wrestling group. I always imagined we would eventually turn professional and put on a show for the town. And so, like, what if we had become professional? What if we had completed our training? What if we had completed the whole deal of purchasing a real ring instead of the mattresses and tires and ladders that we were using to create our own little ring? Um, but what I would imagine our company would have been like turning professional is I would have my top guy being Hollywood Reinhardt, the workhorse of the group, though, in my opinion at the time, young, ambitious, other priorities in life. Um, but if he was the person he is today, definitely the top guy, number one guy, he'd be the star attraction. The other guy, my upper mid Carter or upper main eventer, probably gonna have to be Brian. He was full of ideas, extremely motivated, top tier performer. When we did do training, to kind of back up a little bit, he him and Jeremy, they put on a wrestling clinic and a training with the trainer for a good 45 minutes. Not a whole lot of people who have never had any professional training can go into a wrestling ring with a trained professional and go a straight 45 minutes, take a 15-minute break, and go another 20. So that right there showed that they had a lot of potential, a lot of untapped talent. Um, so I knew if our company ever went professional, those two would be the top guys to build around in the beginning. Um, Rounding out the mid card, definitely would have Jake, who would play Lamagra, Jake Hardy, those characters. Keith Hardy, Corey. Those two were, I feel, a tremendous tag team, and also they were good as singles in my mind. Um, it sounds bad, but not quite main event, but definitely they could hold the mid card and make the main event look strong. Um, and the tag team division would probably go to Andy and Jeremy, or Andy and his brother Randy, if Randy was in tip top perfect health. The brothers were definitely someone to watch when you saw them perform. They're huge, muscle dudes. Definitely could rough you up. I know Andy could because he's done MMA fighting since, but he was a good brawler and definitely could put him in a tag division and look very dominant. He could also go into the main event and hold his own. But I don't think I would build a company around him. for a lot of reasons. Um, but I don't want that to sound too negative. I just don't believe I could build a company around him in particular. Um, and then another thing to kind of understand is our group, we did a lot of multiple different roles, had different personalities that we would do. Um, the nights that we would do these little shows for ourselves, a lot of us had probably 3 to 4 names, and we'd do probably 2 to 3 matches just because we could. It was fun to do at the time. Of course, that would have to change. We would probably have to figure out which would be our dominant character to play. Um, as for like myself, where I would place myself if I was not the like owner, I would probably put myself lower mid card to opener. And that's just where I personally feel that my character could go. Um, I always believed that while I may not have been main event caliber, I could definitely hold my own to get the crowd going, or at least get them interested and keep them watching, keep them motivated to stay with us. Um, yeah, I the what if in this situation is it's so hard to pick just one because we could have gone so many different directions at the time, and ultimately it led to having to end it all because we were all growing up. We were going different directions, starting our own lives, moving away, and ultimately we kind of, in a way, grew apart, cut off conversation, connections, everything. Some of us have stayed in contact, some not so much. Um, I know one of us, the group, passed away last year. His name was Mickey. He was another one that I felt was a promising talent. We really liked having him to wrestle, even though he had his own unique style. He when he went out there and when we had our matches, you could tell he was having fun. He enjoyed what he was doing. And yeah, we were all teenagers, but you could also tell when we were motivated and we felt like we were doing something good. And with him, he had talent that just really needed tapped into. He needed a purpose in life, and he needed something to look forward to. And that I felt was probably one of those things. Unfortunately, around the time we were heading out to get trained, he basically had disappeared. We couldn't get a hold of him, couldn't reach him, couldn't anything. Um, there were others who I feel may have had that talent that could have been more. The name that comes to mind is Maya. Honestly, if he had joined us as well in going pro, I definitely feel he would be among the upper mid carders, maybe main eventers, because that dude could go. He had an untapped mind for what we could have been. We could have been so much more. Um, he had the talent for sure. Unfortunately, that's not how things played out. But yeah, ultimately, I always envisioned the PWF holding maybe a one-time show or maybe even a couple of monthly shows at the convention center here in town. I always envisioned us just kind of giving Pendleton something else to be remembered for besides the Pendleton Roundup, but being the birthplace of a wrestling company in Eastern Oregon, which would never come to fruition until just a few years ago with Prestige Wrestling, um, and they're being based in Hermiston. Um, that's enough rambling. That's my what if. Um, that's just how I would envision how PWF could have been, would have been, had we just stuck around longer in Pendleton and stuck together, uh, had the same goals and ideas in mind. But we were young. We were just trying to figure our life out at the time, and it just didn't work out that way. But that's the whole point of it. What if?